Hey Mondo attendees, Nick Ruffini here from Drummers Resource, and Drummers Resource is the number one longest running drumming podcast in the world. And since 2013, we've been serving up in-depth interviews and great advice for not only drummers, but really musicians around the world. And today I'm talking to Laura Donelan of MusicPro Insurance about advice for musicians getting back out into the world of touring now in, I guess we're calling it now, the post-pandemic era.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's kinda how we're getting together for this little chit chat today. I heard your podcast last month where you gave 5 really key pieces of advice for musicians that are going back out on the road, getting back into the studio, and just getting back to
Hmm.
work.
Yeah. And well, thank you first of all for listening to the podcast. I appreciate it. And a lot of times I like to just pepper in some sort of business advice, and it's really
Mhm.
for all musicians. And given the circumstances, with what's going on in the world, I think that this stuff is always important to talk about. And so, why don't I go through these 5 tips that I gave to musicians
Yeah, for
for
sure.
getting out there? And the last one is getting insurance coverage on all of your gear, and we can talk about that once I've run through these. So let me just start with number one is taxes. And I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, but as a general rule of thumb, excuse me, I tell everyone, take 30% of whatever you make and put it into an account and pretend like it doesn't exist. Because if at the end of the year you don't want to be burdened with a large tax bill. So if you make $100, take 30 of it, put it into an account and set it aside, and just like I said, pretend that it doesn't exist. So that leads me into number two, which is get some online accounting software. So there's a lot of them out there. There's QuickBooks, there's FreshBooks, there's ZipBooks, I'm sure there's some other books out there. But the truth of the matter is, as long as you're calculating how much money you're bringing in and how much money is going out, because you want to track your income and your expenses, because a lot of this stuff, again, I'm not an accountant, but a lot of this stuff is a write-off. So if you buy drumsticks or you buy drum heads or you get lessons or you're paying for gas or hotel rooms or anything like that, excuse me, that's all a tax write-off that you can use to reduce the amount of taxes that you have to pay a year. Again, talk to an accountant, but get some sort of accounting software, something light, something easy like a QuickBooks, a FreshBooks, a ZipBooks. Any of those will do just fine. I wouldn't rely just on doing it in a spreadsheet or something like that. So that's number two. Number three is tying into this as well. I recommend getting a separate bank account so you can operate your quote unquote business out of this separate account. Because whether you are a freelance musician or if you own your band, it doesn't matter. You're still running a business. So you should have a separate account. You can see what's going in, you can see what's going out. You can use certain debit cards or credit cards for expenses and things like that. So set up a separate business account for your LLC or just yourself, as you're making money being a musician or a producer or whatever it is that you do. Number four, if you really want to get deep into the music industry or really deep in your understanding of the industry, I recommend reading All You Need to Know About the Music Business by attorney Donald Passman. And it is hands down the Bible of the music industry, and everyone should have a copy of it. They update it every 2 to 3 years. So it covers everything now, including streaming and social media and all of that stuff, but is, like I said, the industry Bible when it comes to understanding the music business. And Donald Passman he's an entertainment attorney and currently works with every major stars. So not someone who's just sitting in the classroom and doesn't understand what's going out there in the real world. So check it out. All You Need to Know About the Music Business is a great book. And now number five is get insurance for your instruments and your equipment.
And that's where I come in. That's all I do all day is insuring people's equipment.
So I've got a few things to say about how important it is to protect their instruments and equipment, but why don't you jump in and just let us know, why is it so important?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you're a working musician, that's the tools of your trade. And something happens to that, you're out of a job, you're out of
Hmm.
work, you're doing a GoFundMe page or something.
Sure.
Um, Stuff happens all the time, whether it's trailers and vans go missing or get broken into, or someone spills beer on a pedal board at a gig. Did you ever
Mhm.
drop a cymbal and it cracked?
Yep.
Oops, I dropped it. My cat knocked over my guitar and the neck broke. Like all kinds of crazy things can happen.
Yeah. And you see the horror stories all the time. People are on the road, their van gets broken into or their trailer gets stolen
Yeah.
or things get stolen out of their house. But doesn't their auto insurance or their homeowner's insurance cover that if it gets stolen?
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely not covered on an auto policy. If you have homeowners or renters insurance, they're covering the contents of your home, like your
Mhm.
furniture, your clothes, your appliances. If you generate any type of income from the use of your gear, even if it's little and it's not your full-time job, it's just an easy out for a homeowners or renters company to be like, "Nope, it's business equipment, not covered on your homeowners or renters policy."
Wow. Wow. Well, I learned the hard way of that my homeowners or that my car insurance does not cover the contents in my trailer because I had a drum set that was stolen out of a trailer, and while upset, I
Oof.
said, "Oh, no worries. I can just call my auto insurance company and they'll cover this," which did not happen.
Yeah.
So so anything that's so you Music Pro Insurance will cover anything in your house, in your van, accidental damage, basically anything,
Yeah, the
right?
policy just automatically covers the gear anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter
Mhm.
where it is or what you're doing with it. It's just covered wherever it goes. Yeah, theft and accidental breakage are probably the two biggest types of losses that we see, but it also covers fire, vandalism, any type of water damage, whether it's hurricane, flooding, um, earthquake damage is covered also, which is not always easy for some people to get.
Yeah. That and I know the depths of, the coverage here. A friend of mine had his whole entire studio flooded, my
Yeah.
friend Dylan, and by a hurricane and, nearly lost
Mhm.
everything, and
I
Music
remember.
Pro, sent a check and he got a lot of things replaced pretty quickly too. So I would
Yeah.
imagine that with all of this coverage, it costs a lot of money for this coverage, right?
Honestly, it really doesn't. It's not as expensive as people might think. I mean, if you say, for example, you have $20,000 worth of gear, you're looking at about 250 a year for the premium. So it's just like a no-brainer.
That's insane. That's, a gig or two could easily pay for a year's coverage
Right.
of your gear.
Yeah.
Well, I think the lesson that we all learned here is definitely insure your gear. Don't rely on your homeowner's insurance. Don't rely on your auto insurance or your renter's insurance or anything like that to cover that stuff.
For
And
sure. Don't make me worry about you guys.
and again, thank you for listening to the podcast. Thanks for taking the time to chat about this today. And for everyone out there on the road, please stay safe out there.
Thanks, Nick.